Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be talking about how introverts can prepare for a job interview and knock it out of the park. Let's get into it. The first step or the first tip that I'm going to talk about for introverts to prepare for an interview is just to embrace who you are as an introvert. We've talked about in other videos what makes introverts unique, like our listening skills, our ability to communicate um, assertively and with quality and with substance, right? Embracing teamwork in tight knit groups, all those things that we can have in the back of our mind uh, to help us understand that we are who we are, and that is going to be more than enough. We do not need to compare ourselves to others, trying to think that we are less than extroverts. It's the exact opposite. We can embrace who we are. So we want to have that mindset to start out with. The second piece is researching the company. And you've probably heard this before from other videos, but what's really important about researching the company is not only researching the company as a whole, like their headquarters and their mission statement and their values. Those are all things you need to have in your mind, but you need to take it a step further and look at what specifically about that company for your department that you can find online. So whether that's going to be going into IT or human resources or engineering, what segment of the business are you most interested in? What is the job posting for? And if that job posting has the department that you're going to be working in, that's what you need to try to do as much research on as possible. So you can have all of that background information ready to go just in case they ask you, what do you value about the company? Why are you interested in the company? They'll ask very bland or generic questions about the company rather than the specific position that you're interested in. So if we have our mental state being that I am enough, being an introvert is great, being an introvert is awesome, and I can bring everything to the table that this company is looking for. I've done my research on the company. I know what they stand for, and their values as a company also mesh with my values as a company. The third thing is making sure that we practice. And this is so hard, especially for me and all of the interviews that I've done working with the different companies over the years, is just preparing for an interview in terms of practice because I hate it. I hate practicing. I hate practicing in front of other people. I hate practicing in front of the mirror because I don't want to look at my face. But the truth is, the more we practice, any way we practice is going to be better than no practice. So for introverts, especially if we don't want to put ourselves in a position where other people are going to judge us, even though we're choosing an individual that we trust, that we believe in, that's going to give us honest feedback, that it doesn't always make it easy for us to put on a show, if you will, and try to practice your interview. So what I've done that works for me is very similar to a setup like this. I will hit record on my phone and I'll just record myself talking into a camera lens, right? There's nobody around. I don't have to worry about anybody listening to me. And all I have to do when I'm done is just flip the phone around and watch the video. That's one thing you can do that lowers the pressure. If that still is a little too hard for you to do, what I would recommend is try to script out what you want to say, and then practice memorizing that script to yourself just out loud, right? Don't record it. Don't do it in front of anybody else. Just practice it to yourself out loud. It has to be out loud because we use a different part of our brains when we verbalize something rather than reading it in our minds. And verbalizing it helps us memorize it. So just keep doing that over and over again, because even as you verbalize your script, you're going to find things that don't really mesh well when it was typed versus how it sounds spoken, and you're going to catch things like that. And then you're also going to catch when you say things like or just trying to fill an awkward silence. A lot of introverts like us, we don't really have that problem because it's easier for us just to stop talking and there be an awkward silence, which is okay because we're gonna get to that later in the video. But just know that practicing or repeating in any style that's most comfortable for you at the end of the day is going to be better than not practicing at all, because we want to calm those nerves when it's game time. All right, so the next piece is highlighting our strengths. So we kind of started out with embracing your introversion, but specifically, what are those strengths that you can bring to the table? And it also combines with the next one when we talk about communication skills. And we have to be careful how we prepare or practice for an interview, because there could be different styles of interviews. There are behavioral based questions that almost feel like they don't even apply to the job that you applied to, or they could be very technical type questions, especially if you're moving into a technical field like engineering or science. But there's also like situational questions. And so what we need to do as introverts is we're going to prepare for all of them, and get a mix of questions that you can find online. What's being used more and more often are your situational type questions in an interview, which means you set up your surroundings, or you set up the story. You talk about the problem or a situation that you need to address. You talk about the steps that you took to address those situations, and then you talk about the outcome. So it's 4 basic steps, and you're going to come across this online. They're going to be called, different acronyms, but at the end of the day, those situational type questions are becoming the most popular. So when we use our introverted skills, like being able to have really deep thought and articulate our message, and use our communication skills of where we're going to say what we need to say, and we're not going to add any fluff to it. And this is really great in interview situations, because a lot of times the interviewer does not want to hear you rambling, right? And introverts have an advantage because we always prefer quality over quantity, and that this is where we can excel, because when we set up a situation, we're basically gonna outline what is going on, and we can do this concisely, because now we can understand, okay, this is our situation, just like if you were storytelling. This is what I needed to do, these are the steps I took to do it, and then this was the overall outcome. And if you don't address all of those, sometimes you may get a follow-up question from the interviewer or the interviewing team about, hey, what was the outcome? Or what did your manager think about that? So just be prepared that those situational type questions can be advantageous for us as introverts if we just prepare ahead of time, knowing that that's a possibility. Now, the next one, I've talked about this probably in 2 or 3 videos already, but body language is important for us, right? And so we need to make sure that we do not fidget with our hands. If we wear a ring or a watch, bracelets, right, we're not fidgeting with them with our other hand. We could either have our hands placed on the table in front of us, or we can have them sitting in our lap. And what that does is that allows us to focus on our shoulders and making sure that we're sitting up straight, our shoulders are back, we're not slouched forward like we don't care. And we want to have a neutral but slightly positive face, right? We don't want to overreact and try to smile so big that it looks disingenuous. We also don't want it to seem like we're trying too hard, and you get to the point where you just start sweating, right? Everyone knows you're nervous, and it's just a matter about how you handle yourself and how you compose yourself, and that's what the interviewers are really looking for. So stay open, right? Keep your shoulders back and down. Make sure that you're leaning back a little bit, just so you can have that upright posture. And again, make sure your hands are down at a neutral position, and they don't see you fidgeting, and they don't hear any fidgeting with your hands. Same thing goes with your feet, right? If you're prone to tapping your feet when you get nervous, try to cross your feet at the bottom. That kind of prevents you from tapping them on the ground, or kind of like lock them in a position where you don't have to worry about them. That's one less thing on your mind. Okay, so at the end of the interview, and this is key, and the people that I've interviewed for jobs before, and even myself being the person interviewed for roles, is you want to make sure you have questions for the interviewers. And that is either about the company itself, where do you see this position being successful, or how do you measure this position as being successful? Where do you see this position in 3 to 5 years? If this position isn't filled, what are the possible consequences to the business? Right? So just right there, that was 4 or 5 questions of you actually pushing the interviewers to dig a little bit deeper. And they're not just bland surface level questions like when was the company founded or things like that. Basic things like that you should already know. This is your time to dig into your specific position, and you want to understand, hopefully it's the hiring manager at this point, what you need to do to be successful so you can see what they're looking for and how can you relate to that and make sure that you perform. You also want to see why the company is even hiring for this position, and if they don't, what are those consequences? Is it going to hurt the business? Is it going to stunt their growth in other aspects? Do they need this position filled so they can make investments elsewhere? Right? Those are all important things to know so you can build some context to say, or to understand, what is it that you're going to be doing and how big of an impact is it on the overall business, and the bottom line. So the next piece is being specific, and we talked about this already, is being as specific as possible in your questions. But this also relates to being as specific as possible when we talked about those situational questions for the interviewer, because we want to make sure that we're not using language like we or the team, right? This is your interview. You're the one in the hot seat, right? And so when we talk about either your questions for the interviewers at the end or your situational questions, you want to make sure you're using the term I. I did this. These are the steps I took, right? You want to take responsibility, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're being as truthful as possible. You don't want to take someone else's work and then apply yourself to it and then take all the credit. Will that interviewer ever find out? No, right? But that's not what it's about. It's about integrity and putting yourself in the best light you can, but also doing it in the most truthful way as possible. So the last piece is just following up. A lot of times what's going to happen is, like, there may be an HR person or a recruiter that kind of sets up the meeting, um, even if it's remote or it's in person, and sometimes you don't get that the hiring manager's email address. What you can do is just ask HR or the recruiter for that information, and be honest and say, may I please have their email address so I can send a follow-up thank you email. More often than not, they're going to do it. There are very, very few situations where, if they already see that you're probably not a good fit, they're not going to do it. But if you've already passed that first or second round with a recruiter or HR and they like you and you're moving on to the interview with the hiring manager, they're probably going to share the contact information at that point. And then after the interview, you can wait 1 to 2 days and then send a thank you email. So you thank the hiring manager for their time and for their questions, and that you're very interested in the company and you're very eager to utilize your skill set in this new position. And what that does is that whether you're at the beginning of the interview process, you're in the middle, or you're the person that's being interviewed at the end, and the hiring manager has already been through 50 interviews, makes it really hard for them to remember what's going on. So if you wait a couple days, you're going to remind the hiring manager who you are, the types of questions that you asked, and that brings yourself back to the front of their minds. And if the resume is sitting on their desk, they're more likely to pull up your resume and read over it again. So it always helps to send a follow-up email. If you don't get a response, that's okay. Wait about a week or so and send another one. And that kind of just makes sure that the hiring manager has gotten through the hiring process, hopefully by that point, and they're now on to reviewing all the applications and the interviews, and then sending another follow-up email. Again, does the same thing, puts you at the front of their mind, brings out your resume again, and that can help your chances. After that, it's about patience and hoping that you either get a rejection letter and you're not completely ghosted, or you get another email saying that they would like to invite you back for another interview or to talk about benefits or anything else about the role. So there you have it. Hopefully some of you have gotten some information out of this. If any of you have been in a similar situation recently, you've either done the hiring and you can share some information with potential interviewees, or you're currently interviewing for new roles and you've come across some things that I didn't cover in this video and you want to share with the rest of the audience, please put them down in your comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all next time.